Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Monday Q&A. So let's do this. This question's kind of ironic. How to focus on oneself and their own path as opposed to discrediting others for what they have done or are doing. The reason that's ironic is because obviously on YouTube I have built a bit of a name for myself by calling out other people on a number of issues, particularly conning other people, the fake natty thing. But the truth is, when the camera is off, I don't think about that sort of shit at all. That is purely my YouTube face. That is something that I do because people have asked me to do it over and over, and it's just something that has now become part of what I do online. It's part of my public image, my public persona. Me personally, I don't get involved in shit like that in the real world. I don't really care. I don't care to discredit others unless there is some sort of direct public need to do so because there is some benefit to people to doing it, which is why I started doing it on YouTube, which is weird because before that, I'm just not that way. I've never been that way at any point in my life. And even with my powerlifting, I don't ever look at someone who's a better lifter than me and get angry about it. I look at it and I draw inspiration from that. I see someone else who's doing better than me, and instead of discrediting them, I look and go, well, is there something that they're doing better than I am that I could use to improve myself? And say to myself, well, if they can do it, maybe I can do it too. Maybe I can't, but damn, I could try at least. You know, because if someone else is doing something, at least I got a chance, even if it's a small one, to maybe do what they're doing. So let me figure out what they're doing better than me and strive towards it. And maybe they're just working harder than me. Maybe they've just been doing it longer. But I don't look at other lifters and really look that close at their numbers unless it is a lifter that I'm going to compete against at a meet. Like I look at right now here in the UK, I know every single 90 kilo lifter and every single 100 kilo lifter who is in my federation or could possibly cross over to my federation, and I know their lifts at every single meet. I'm only focused on them because I need to know what they're doing because I'm going to have to compete against them. I need to know for competition purposes where I'm going to rank up. Who do I need to, try to psych out at meets? Where do I need to make alliances to get other people to cheer me on to help psych out other people? Who needs to be my friends? Who do I need to psych out? What's going on from a competitive perspective? But at the end of the day, the guys who are way ahead of me, I have tremendous respect for them. And I use them as my benchmark of, well, if that's where they're at, that's where I need to get to. But I have a tremendous amount of respect. And I think that's the way that you need to look at it with this. But if you're not competitive, you're not competing in something, my advice to you, even though I provide that service of bringing some of this stuff down, my advice to anybody who doesn't compete is don't compare yourself to anyone else. Ignore everyone else as far as your training endeavors go, unless that you think that they can teach you something useful, unless you're convinced they can teach you something useful to be closer to their level and where they are. Pretend they don't exist. Don't look at them. Because otherwise that will potentially eat at you. Some people say they find it inspirational, but if you're not a competitive person, you're not competing, who cares about that level of inspiration? Just do your thing and ignore them. But like with anything else in life, if you're trying to be really good at something, rather than try to drag them down, look at those people who are more successful than you and say, well, could I become friends with them? Could they teach me something about what they're doing? Because to be honest, me personally, if I'm jealous of something that someone else has, rather than try to discredit them, if I am truly jealous, I go out of my way to become their friend. I go out of my way to become their friend because I assume that if they're doing better than me, that maybe they have something that they could teach me, and maybe I can get closer to their level and where they are so that I don't have to be jealous. They know something. They've got some trick, something that they know that is allowing them, or even the way their mindset that is allowing them to be better, and I would rather try to do that than be jealous of them. So I try to actually become their friend and be their legitimate friend, not, a backstabbing friend. I think that's the best route to go there. All right, next question. How does equipment such as a slingshot overload a muscle? It lets you use more weight, but that makes the weight easier. Seems similar to a weighted band-assisted chin-up. Well, band-assisted chin-up and a slingshot both have something in common. They make the weight lighter in the weakest part of the range of the motion. The range of the motion that is the hardest to move the same weight, which is the bottom, they reduce the load so that you can use a heavier weight that feels lighter, and it is lighter at the hardest part, but at the easier part, you're using a heavier weight that you would normally be using. It's called accommodating resistance, and the whole idea behind that is that it will allow you to get more overload at the range of the motion where you wouldn't normally be using that much weight. Now, how useful that is for developing strength and muscle is subject to a lot of controversy, but that is the idea behind it. And yeah, it will probably make you stronger due to joint angle specificity through the stronger part of the range of motion, but that doesn't always translate into more strength through the full range of motion, particularly at the weak point. Just something to keep in mind. All right, next question. Do you think working out at home in your own gym like you do is better, and why? Quite simply, it is way better from a social perspective because I'm not always a good team player with anything I do in life. I do like to do things on my own and not have other people hold me back, not have to rely on other people unless there really is a legitimate need to do so. And many times there is. But if there is no need for a team, I don't want one. And I don't like necessarily, because of that, the social environment of the gym, because I'm a very social person. I'm a very talkative person. And me being in that social environment, for me, can be very distracting from my training, because I will chat with people and get in a conversation with people for 20 minutes and forget that I'm supposed to be training. It's just the way I am. I'm a very social person when I'm around other people with anything that I have anything in common with. And so for me, it's very distracting. And when I'm training at home, I can focus on just my training, no distractions. I don't see anyone else. I can do my thing and be focused on my training. I tend to do better that way. The only downside is, of course, you can't always have as much equipment. Most of us don't have the floor space or the facilities to necessarily have everything that we might want, but usually we can get pretty close. All right, next question. Jason, how would you recommend I go about starting a powerlifting team in my area? Any thoughts regarding structuring meetings, practice programming for ranked beginners, etc., as well as how to recruit people who would be welcome? This is easy. I would start with a weekend thing, like a Saturday or a Sunday. Weekends are really good, and just a 1 day a week thing to start. You could always branch it out into more if people start really preparing to train for a meet, where a lot of you can train together even in sub-teams. But a weekend lets you get 1 day in, and that can teach everyone the basics. Most beginners are going to be on a full body type program anyways, probably 3 days a week, 4 days a week, but it's going to be full body in nature. And accordingly, you can come in once a week and you can all do the basics together and then compare notes, and you can help set people up on a program for the rest of the week by checking their progress on a weekly basis on the weekend and having everyone do one session together. And kind of judge where everything's going, and then they can program their other 2 workouts every week based upon that. So I think just a once a week is a fantastic way to start on some sort of full body program. It is how I would personally do that. And as far as outreach, it's the internet. We have so much social media and ways to put out information that the internet gives you everything you could possibly need for that. It should be easy. All right, next question. I hear MCTs cannot be stored by the body as fat. Could you minimize fat gains on the bulk by replacing the majority of your dietary fat with MCTs? Well, you know what? You can't store carbs and protein as fat. They have to be converted, just like MCT has to be converted. The downside is that MCT can be converted much, much easier and more efficiently than they can as body fat. The only difference is your body won't store it directly without conversions. Generally, long-chain fatty acids, whether they're saturated, polyunsaturated, your body stores them directly with minimal changes in their structure. They can just store them directly. MCTs, it has to make some minor changes, but it's still a triglyceride. It's still triglyceride. You can still store it, it's just that it takes slightly more energy, is slightly less efficient, because it has to change the shape of the molecule a little bit to store it. So it does have to be a little energy used for that, and it's not as much as, say, carbs would take. So it's not really that good, because it's still not, for a lot of purposes, as good of an energy source as carbs might be. And a lot of MCT oils don't carry a lot of the other nutritional benefits and the micronutrients or essential fatty acids that you would want from other fat sources. So from a nutrition perspective, It might not be as good as other fats, and from an energy perspective, it might not be as good as carbs. So I don't know if it's really going to be the route to go at all. And that is a misnomer that you can't store. You can't store them in the form they're in, but you can convert them to a storable form. Relatively easy, just it's a little harder than longer chain fatty acids. All right, next question. Who needs to be and would be the strongest, a rugby or NFL player? Slightly an ambiguous question as there are many variables to consider. But please use your own judgment when answering this question. This comes down to individual positions, but if we mean overall, American football players are a bit bigger than rugby players are. Therefore, you need to have more strength to hit a bigger guy who's 50, 60, 80 pounds heavier than a lot of the rugby players are. And the rugby players are big guys, but I don't see rugby players really over 300 pounds. There aren't that many. Or the American football players are. So you need to be able to hit and take a hit. And so you do need to be stronger overall, but it's really tit for tat because honestly, both sports, to really excel at both, most of the players on the field for most of the positions need a tremendous amount of strength. They need to be getting as much as they can get. Because those are both full contact sports that require a lot of strength. All right, next question. How many fights have you been in? Tell us fighting stories, man. Have you been knocked the fuck out or knocked someone out? Tell us all that shit. All right, some other people already answered this question. Some other people kind of rolled their eyes at it too. Clearly this person and a lot of you do not have an upbringing anything like mine. And I've been knocked out one time. My father knocked me out with a steel pipe. And I hate questions like this because to me this is playground schoolyard shit. And I didn't have that sort of upbringing to even look at the schoolyard the way that other people do and a lot of young men do before they become adults. My father is an asshole, and and I've talked about this in detail on the Ask Jason channel, my upbringing. My father was a Green Beret in Vietnam. He was a hard ass when I was growing up. He didn't teach me the same life lessons other people got. I wasn't taught to fist fight as a resolution. My upbringing, and particularly with my grandfather being a naval officer, I was always taught to use violence as a last resort. You always try to talk your way out of a conflict, because conflict and physical conflict, the intended result is generally to kill somebody. And I'm not going to go into the details, but yes, I have killed armed men in my life. That's nobody's business. That's my own background. And it's not something I want to brag about or talk about. It's not an internet hard-ass thing, but I've always been taught that because fighting should always be taken seriously, if you need to put a man down, you put him down for good. You don't fight unless you have to. And I have always adhered to that policy. If I can talk my way out of a situation or find some other way out of a situation that does not involve violence, I'm always going to do so. And I'm not going to knock somebody the fuck out. If I have to confront someone, I'm going to try to do as much damage as possible while minimizing my own risk. That's my only goal. I don't care about knocking them out. It's stupid. That's schoolyard shit. You guys shouldn't be getting in fights over stuff that isn't life and death. All right, last question of the week. What's your take on bad workouts? I've had times where I go to lift and my last warm-up felt really heavy. Yeah, we've all been there, brother. If I continue, I usually don't do anything anywhere near what I should be doing. Okay, this again, coming back to that other question about why I hate splits, this is kind of high on that list. We all get these days. I don't care what program you run. I don't care whether you're a novice, whether you're advanced, whether you're natural, whether you're enhanced, whether you're super enhanced. Every single one of us experiences this. They're called bad workouts. They happen. We missed something in our recovery cycle. We didn't get a proper diet the last couple of days. We had something in our personal life that overstressed us. We didn't get enough sleep. There's a ton of factors that can contribute. You're going to have bad workouts. And if you're training on some sort of split and you miss a critical day and you don't train that body part again or that lift again for another week, you basically have almost 2 weeks of no progress on it. And so you really have a problem there with your overall progression. Whereas in people who do full body type training or even Bulgarian type training, one bad workout won't even make a blip in your progress for the month. It's completely irrelevant. And this is one of the reasons why I don't like split workouts, is because this is one of the other reasons, is because of this situation, the recovery issues. And the only way around that is to not run a program and a system of training to where bad workouts are going to negatively affect you in the grand scheme of things, because they do. If you're only training a lift once a week and you just happen to have bad luck you end up having 4 bad workouts for that one lift in 1 year, you end up missing an entire month's worth of progress because of it, due to messed up recovery and other issues. So again, the best way to deal with the bad workouts is to have a training system to where if you have a bad workout, it doesn't really negatively affect your progress. And that's when I write programs, that's what I try to incorporate that, because this happens, we make mistakes. We miss something in the recovery cycle sometimes, even with the best of programming. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. But let me give you guys a bicep shot before I go. Oh, Mount Biceps.